Okay. Today is Tuesday, June 21st, and you're listening to the Beer Temple Podcast.
Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again. Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again.
Hello, and you're listening to the Beer Temple Podcast. I am your co-host, Mike Shalau.
AKA Long Fade.
Long Fade.
DJ Long Fade.
I'm here with my co-host, Chris Quinn, and the inmates are running the asylum/board. Mm-hmm. We are in a surgeless environment, and it is terrifying.
Yeah. Yep.
Chris, how you doing?
Not very good. Hulk Hogan is messing with the wires.
He's never been here before.
Yeah.
And it's cold.
But I'm doing well otherwise.
No, it's not hot.
Yeah.
Is that what he said?
Yeah. Where am I? I know. I've never been here before. It's not hot.
What an incredible actor that man was.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, I'm doing well. I feel a little bummed because for the 250th episode, we had we had Jogger come in and do Gorilla Meat live.
Yeah.
And
they play out a lot, so it wasn't a big deal.
Surge totally botched the fade.
Yeah.
And it got lost.
That's right.
So, but other than that, I mean, that's what's done is done, and everyone can have a mistake. I'll just bash him a little bit while he's not here.
He gets one.
Yeah, he gets one.
Yeah.
And then other than that, he'll be fired.
Yes.
Please don't be fired.
Please don't be fired, Serge.
Yeah.
Please don't be fired by us by accident.
Yeah. So it's us. We're running the asylum. I'm not sure what I'm doing right now. But this
You are
cord's
really
not
struggling with your.
Yeah.
You have a very particular thing you want to do with your headphone cord.
I guess so. So yeah. See, you want to do it too. You don't like it.
It's going across the board.
Right. See, but it's just we didn't do it right.
Serge would not allow that.
You're doing it wrong. Here.
Anyway, this is good podcasting. Okay. You're welcome, everyone. Sign up for the Patreon. Link in the bio.
Exactly. Link in bio for Patreon memberships. The funny thing is, anyone who's new to the show might think, oh, they have Patreon. But it won't matter because they would never look. Because they'll never think to... Yeah, exactly.
We should be paying them.
Exactly. So if you have a Patreon, let us know. We owe you money.
We'll sub.
Yes. So it's just the two of us, and we've got a few things going on. Should we start? We should thank the listeners. We should thank everyone who's listening, who downloads our show on their favorite podcasting app, site, whatever, how they do it, method, and people on who listen to us on the airwaves, 105.5 FM, Lumpen Radio, WLPN. Thank you to Lumpen Radio, as always, for having us. Much appreciated.
I was talking to a friend of mine. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt
Go for it.
It seemed like the right time. His name's Eli. He was actually at the party on Saturday that you were at. We can talk about that later, maybe. And he was talking about how he happened to be driving somewhere in Chicago at 8 p.m. on a Thursday, tuned into Lumpen Radio, was listening to the podcast on the radio.
That's cool.
But he also said that he listens to podcasts at like 1.25 or 1.5 speed. So he thought for a couple minutes that we were just like really high, talking very slow, because he assumes our voices are faster and that we're a little bit more agitated than we actually are.
Right. No, nice and slow. We had somebody last week come in from the UK who listens to the podcast.
That's insane.
And was bummed we didn't have any Is-Was. He was trying to buy Is-Was beer. I don't think we had any.
Or you've got Is-Was right now.
On draft.
Oh, on draft.
Yeah, on draft.
Well, Steven, buy some more Is-Was beer for that one time a year when the guy from the UK comes to the beer temple.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There aren't a lot of places to get it on draft. To be perfectly
Yeah.
honest, though.
And did I tell you I was in Beloit, Wisconsin, and a guy came up to me in the Bushel and Peck store while I was looking at like expensive jams and jellies, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I already
he just
mentioned
someone came up to you, just a person, and they
Yeah.
said nothing about the show.
Yeah, it was.
He just stood there quietly.
Yeah, he stood there, and people usually don't come up to me, so I thought that was worthwhile to mention.
He said he had heard the show.
I've heard. Yeah, he asked me if I was Chris, and I said, yeah. And he said, I'm Dan. I said, hi, and he says, I listen to your podcast, and then he kind of.
I wonder.
Described it a little bit.
We sell beer to one store in Wisconsin, and it's a man named Dan who drives down and actually picks it up from us. I wonder if it's the same Dan. If it is, what's up, Dan?
It's cool. Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
What's he look like?
Looks like a guy who lives in Wisconsin. I don't know. He's handsome.
Oh.
Yeah. Makes great decisions on what beer he brings into his store.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now
just like you.
Yeah, I have to say that it was him.
Yeah.
Because that guy will be listening and be like, "What? I'm not handsome." So anyway, yeah, that was cool. So I've got a few questions for you. First of all,
how are you?
How? I mean, I really want to know how are you?
Yeah.
Any beers you've had lately that you've enjoyed? I got one.
Well, you got a lot. You brought a lot of beers into the store the day after. We recorded that are my favorite beers. So I came and I got some Terrace Bulba and some Zenevere and some Vermontois and some Deputra and all of my favorites. So
Nice.
I bought 4 Terrace Bulbas like a fool, and I've already had 3 of them. So I got and I'm drinking one right now.
You're drinking one now.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I gotta say, all of those beers, Terrace, that oeuvre of continental delights.
Yes. And, I mean, it might be going on as we speak, but we are probably very close. Hours, days away.
Weeks, months, years, maybe.
Years, lifetimes away from Coniston's Bluebird Bitter. Back on draft in Chicago. When's the last time that beer has been on draft in Chicago?
I don't know if I've ever had it on draft in Chicago.
I don't think I have.
I think the only time I've had it on draft is that story we tell at once every 3 or 4 episodes of you and I just nerding out about it.
I know.
At Shelton Fest.
Hopefully it's good. Hopefully it doesn't crush our
It will.
memories of it.
I mean, that one was probably like airlifted.
True.
Like a skier off a mountain.
Right, like a single, just helicoptered all the way across the Atlantic, just hanging from the belly.
Right.
Just one keg.
It would be expensive if it wasn't Constance Blueberry Bitter, but it's worth it. And everyone knew it.
Mm-hmm. So, yes. So, yeah, you had a whole bunch. I'll tell you what beer I had lately that I really liked was Levain. I had it at your event.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I did want to talk about that. I actually felt bad. I went to the event.
Is this the first time you've had this feeling?
No, I feel bad quite often. And I was like, hey, you want to like go grab a beer or something? And you're like, well, I'm having a release party type thing. So why don't you come on over? So it's like, okay. And I thought it was going to be like you pick up the bottle, I would say hi, and then split, and I go in, and it was definitely like a come hang out, and I think it had just started too.
Yeah.
So it was like still that like
when it started.
Right, those vibes. So I felt like I was intruding, and I had my kids with me. Definitely the only children, the only guy who brought kids. I was wearing, I think, like mesh shorts and.
Yeah, you
might have had slides on. I don't know.
You had slides on, and then I forget you were wearing some sort of brewery T-shirt that I thought was like, "This is perfect. This is exactly what this is like." People are getting a very pure Chris Quinn moment here,
Yes.
where it's like a Cantillon T-shirt and one basketball shorts and slides.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's essentially what I was wearing, and what shirt was I wearing? I don't know.
It was a Hill Farmstead shirt. I think.
That's right. It was a Purple Hill Farmstead shirt. That's true. And people were there for like, well, can you explain what they were there for?
Yes, we did like a really small, like it was capped at 12 people, tickets pre-sold, release party for Levan, which is like our mixed culture beer. Like we only do like one a year, and then we do a couple variants.
It's really, really good.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and so like people bought this. They got like a bundle of a few, like the 3 variants of the beer, the Estange glass, and then this like really beautiful handmade mug that our artist makes. He's Joe Kraft. He's actually a ceramicist by trade, and then does illustrations.
Ceramicist.
Yeah, he has a degree in ceramics, and then studied in Amsterdam and France, and then got a grant to travel around the Southwest of America studying like indigenous pottery. But now he mostly does like visual art. Like he does murals. He does all of our bottle art. He like redrew our logo just for fun.
Okay.
But so he handmade mugs for everyone who came, and then we had the Base Levan, Wilby, and Bourgeois Daydream, which is like a table beer we make that we're on draft and kind of like serve yourself as much as you want as long as you're responsible. Mm-hmm. And then people were just like hanging out in the brewery. So I'd moved all the pallets of conditioning beer out into some of Beguile's space and then put some picnic tables in there. And we had a record player going and had a bunch of cheese from Blakesville, which is up in Wisconsin, that they actually wash their Sunny Ridge, which is like everything they make is goat cheese, but it's a kind of a semi-soft goat cheese that they wash in our beer. Usually will be. Sometimes if I have other kegs, I'll send those up to them. So it was like a cheese plate that everyone could share, and then just mostly just hang out and
the bread.
And I bake some bread.
Amazing.
And the bread actually is made with the same sourdough starter that I sourced some of the yeast and bacteria for the Levan from. I added it to beer wort and grew up yeast and did that over a several weeks of
very, very, very good bread.
Yeah. Thank you. So it's just like a small party to hang and release this thing that is very precious, very special to me, and kind of tie in all of the other things we do into that like party. And
it was
then
an awesome time.
And people were also like, all of our barrels are in that room, so if anyone wanted to taste any specific barrel or anything, they could ask me and I'd pull a nail for them, or taste anything that was in a tank, or if we had all of the bottles, but basically any Brett beer we ever made, if anyone wanted to chill one down and try it, they got to try it. So
yeah,
it's a fun time.
Yeah, and I saw a bunch of people that I know there. It was nice to see everybody, and the part that I felt bad about was I felt really bad. I almost wanted to apologize. I almost do want to apologize that I was just so unaware. I'm just so oblivious to everything that's going on, and I saw like all these people who are supporting you, friends of yours. They're all showing up, some people from far away, and then I was literally 1 block away stumbling in my slides with my children in tow because I was like, hey, you want to go grab a beer? And
to your kids?
Yeah, exactly. And they were troopers. They hung out for a long time.
I think Katie's got a little crush on Serge. Were you picking up on that?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I know. Yeah,
How
she likes
old is she?
Serge.
7?
Yeah.
9?
And Charlie liked Serge too, and Kate. I mean, he's a huge Kate fan.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Who isn't?
Right.
Yeah, you don't have to feel bad about that. I didn't really.
Tronica.
I don't even know if I told you about it.
Well, that's the thing. Like other people knew, though. They just knew.
Well, they're on our email list, so
right. That's the thing that I feel bad about. Like I have to get, and I have to read those emails. But I just those things go like in one ear, out the other, in one ear and out the other ear. So I just felt like, you know what? I have to be more considerate, more conscious, more mindful of all these things because I do want to support. And then I talked myself off the ledge a little bit because I was like, well, I do support as well as in other ways, you know?
Very much so.
Yeah. But still, it was, I was happy to be there and was kind of like, oh man, I would have felt really, I wouldn't have known. And that upset me. I was like, "Oh man, I'm glad I knew about it, and I'm upset that I wasn't more like on top of it." But anyway,
I mean, there were only 12 spots available. I didn't like plug it on the show or anything.
Sure.
So, and like the intention was for it to be like an amount of people that I could actually interact with in a one-on-one, or at least like a group-on-one basis, and feel like I connected with everyone.
Yeah.
Rather than just like, let's see how many we can get to come to this thing. So.
Right.
And it was just in the brewery and. made everyone. The tickets were like a little expensive. Made people like walk down an alley past dumpsters and cigarette butts that I tried to sweep up, but it just seemed to be multiplying. Like
my kids didn't mind. They were literally playing amongst the dumpsters.
Yeah.
They're annoying me, so I was like, go outside, go play, and in the dumpsters. So that's what they were.
Yeah,
That's what
Charlie
they were doing.
came out wearing a fabulous trash outfit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was like derelict from
Yeah.
Zoolander.
It was. Yeah, they were playing some game with like full cups of water that they were just
Well,
running
yeah,
through.
I think they liked to use. You had draft water.
Yeah.
So they like to do it. They're probably there aren't many kids I think who are comfortable using a draft system. My kids are totally okay with it.
Yeah.
Have been for quite a while.
Yeah, yeah.
So they were going and they knew which one they were allowed to pour from.
Yeah.
And then I think they would go out and dump it so they could pour more water.
Which was
themselves.
fine. You kept trying to stop them. I'm like, no, it's cool. They can just pour
Right.
as much water as they want. We have 15 gallons of water for 12 people. We're going to be all right.
That's
no
true.
one's like working out heavily and needs to.
Okay. I didn't know if you had a half barrel of water.
Yeah.
Okay.
15 and a half gallons then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wasn't. I thought maybe you had a sixtel, and I was like, I don't want you running out of water.
Even still, that's a lot of water.
Yeah, it's true. But they had a good time.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, it was a good time. Yeah, Serge was there,
Serge was there. Yeah.
and there were some listeners of the podcast who had never seen or heard Serge, and they looked over and they're like, "Wait, Serge is here? Who's Serge?" And I was like, "That's Serge." I'm like, whoa, and he wasn't talking at all at the time, which was
No,
perfect.
he was just fading.
He was
in
just
and
like
out.
sitting there,
He was by the record player fading.
just fading
Yeah.
it. He brought his own
Yeah.
fader.
It wasn't connected to anything, but he was just
Yeah. Well,
Faders
I
up,
think he
faders
had
down.
it. He had headphones on or something.
Yeah.
He's in his own
in the
little
zone,
world.
yeah.
Yeah. So
when you're really good at something, you got to like show it off. You know?
it's magnetic apparently to my daughter.
Yeah.
So it's funny that she likes Serge.
It's a handsome man.
Yeah. He's the fade master.
Yeah.
So as far as are we ready to move on?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah.
Hulk, are you ready?
You ready, man? Do you know where we are? Have you been here before?
This isn't hot.
So the mic's hot though. Hot mic.
The takes are hot.
Yeah, the takes are piping hot. As hot as the 97 degrees it was today, whatever it is.
It's too many.
So we were trying to figure out what to talk about. And we were kind of going around this thing, and I figured a lot of what we were talking about I think will naturally kind of come to. And I don't want it to be just a bitch fest. I do want it to be like us actually trying to talk and maybe discover why we feel what we feel, or maybe trying to put some definition to it.
Sure.
Because I think Pat Berger, who is in a lot of ways
Optimistic.
very optimistic,
Sunny.
goes with the flow, kind of just, if someone says yes, he just says yeah.
Demures.
Yes, man.
Often.
But he definitely, I think, speaks. He's not necessarily parallel to how we think, and we're not parallel to how we think. We think slightly differently, but we're pretty in tune to one another. I think we agree on almost everything.
We were looking at the draft board, and you said, should I have a House of Pain classic or a Buddy Holly classic? And I picked out exactly the beers you were talking about.
Exactly. But I think he does kind of speak to something in a very direct way that we kind of feel, although we might not use the words he does. And I think he said, like, beer's not cool anymore. I'm done with it. Like, craft beer isn't cool, and we're the ones who broke it, and who made it that way. And he's not wrong, in a certain sense.
Right.
So I was trying to think about what that meant, because at the same time, I'm more excited about the beer that's coming out now than I was a couple of years ago.
Yeah. And I think this will...
And that sucked. Like, when I was, like, not liking the beer, like, that's when I was, like, burnt out on this show. It's just, like, I was just so upset with, like, what was being made and why it was being. I think I was upset more with why it was being made than what was being made. Frankly,
Sure.
Like pastry stout, fine. Hazy, fine. Whatever.
Yeah.
But why they were being made, I
think
bummed me out.
probably the why, and then the conversation around the why, where it was just like the why being like, this is what sells, full stop, right? Like I think that
Right.
stinks, right? Where there's no nuance or there's no other part of it being like, well, we're figuring out a way to make our thing in the world. It was just like, now we're selling a bunch of beer, and this is what sells.
This is what sells. This is what we see getting engagement on Instagram.
Right.
This is what we see. This is easy because it's an easy sale.
Well, I think at the time, it was an easy sale. I think at the time the idea was that it was easy to make those styles of beer too, and like it was easy in the same way it was easy to make like a West Coast IPA, where it wasn't actually that easy to make a good one. It was easy to make one that people identified as like, oh, this has enough of the touch points of like, or touchstones of like, oh yeah, I liked this style from a brewery that made a really good version. So people that were making passable beer were just kind of putting a little bit of like, oh, we'll just throw these things in there, and then everyone will like it. Citra Simcoe, mosaic. But the proliferation of that and I don't know, these are probably the wrong terms, and Doug will get mad at us, but like the full market share of craft beer that was or craft beer as we engage with it, right? Not like, not like the IRI data or anything, but that all we saw were the same, the same things in iterations upon the same thing in small iterations, right?
Right. Small iterations of a sub-style that I don't think really had... I was not interested, I guess, in the nuances. Maybe there were other beer styles that I am interested in the subtle nuances of it, but, let's call it like a porter. Like,
you're saying that too many people were making porters?
No, like think of it as a porter. Like, if everyone's making a porter, there's just like they're all gonna be porters. You're not gonna have a huge range within porter.
Right.
You have some range.
Right.
There is some range.
Right.
But there's not that much range. It's not like saison. It's not even, frankly, like pale ale. Like pale ale, there's a huge range you can work with. And I just felt like, okay, like cool, make them, but don't just make them. Like people are killing like everything else they did to do line extensions of hazy, and it's just like, oh boy.
It was an interesting full extension of the idea that craft brewers have had since like the 70s or 80s, I think, of like education is really important, right? We need people to know about like what goes on, why this beer is different than macro beer. And that really happened a lot in hops and hop styles, where people started looking specifically for hop and hop styles or hop varietals. And that's what that education got to the point where people knew different varieties and style and hops. Yeah. And so like this one thing that really tasted very similar often, there were definitely nuances and things were different, and there were varying degrees of how good it was. This is not just another episode of us just like poo-pooing hazy.
No, we're going to
IPA.
get away from this, I promise.
However, like it was a way to make something you knew would please your customer, but also iterate upon in a way that they thought was valuable.
And I think we can touch on that more, because I also think they were the market was getting more crowded. Growth was slowing down. They were moving defensive / fear-driven. I think a lot of them were making hazies because they were afraid not to, in a way, is what it felt like.
Yeah, this is the era where I think we talked about on the show a lot, but of people saying it, we don't really drink them, but it's what the kids like, and like that's just made me so sad. Right. It made me start a brewery that didn't do that, but not that I don't like hazy IPAs, but I don't like that vibe of a brewery.
So I think we're coming out of that for sure. But I still think that beer is that Pat has a point, that beer isn't cool. So I started to think about why that is. And I kind of have an idea that I wanted to kind of discuss with you and have you maybe help me flesh out, poke holes in, or find a different avenue to kind of branch off from this. So think of it as a starting point. So I think that craft beer isn't cool currently because all the breweries who made it cool, and I think these are the breweries that have been around for, with some standard deviations on either side. There's a bell curve here. I mean, there's going to be the Sierra Nevadas who are outside of this thing, but in the past, from 1995 to 2005, we'll say. Something like that. Maybe a little bit later even. When did Rev come around? I don't know.
Well after that.
Okay, 2009
maybe?
Okay. We'll say till 2010. And maybe even beyond. And 95 I'm saying because that gets you the Victories and the Three Floyds and that whole crew. Lagunitas.
Goose Island.
Yeah.
Oh,
no, they're 88.
89.
They're 88 or whatever, class of 88.
Yeah, my bad.
But I think Dogfish Head is in that class. There's a ton.
Yeah.
So those are the breweries that I think essentially made it cool, right? Really, probably even on the little bit earlier side.
The first ones to make it cool and not just look at what these hippies are doing.
They set the standard of that the guys who were on the later end of what we were just talking about followed. And craft beer exploded, blew up. I mean, that's why we're here. That's why we're talking about this. That's why we love craft beers, because of those breweries.
I would say mine are later.
Okay.
But I get what you're saying.
Yours are later? What do you mean?
Yeah, I didn't go to, I was 21 when Half Acre opened a tasting room. So that's the first one for me. And that's why I started going to those in 2010.
Okay. So that's on the, what did I say, till 2005? Yeah. So, I mean, I would still say that Half Acre was directly influenced by kind of that vein, that wave.
Yeah, can we say that's the first wave?
I would say that's first wave, maybe going into second wave. Sure. First and second wave.
Of American.
Yeah.
Culturally American.
And then what would you say, Pipeworks was early third wave?
Third wave,
yeah. So let's say first and second wave.
The timing between the beginning of the first wave, the end of the first wave, the beginning of the second wave, and the end of the second wave. When the overlap, it's it goes from 2 decades to 4 years, 6 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is the years that I just put out are not important at all.
Right.
I'm talking more about just kind of that first wave, second wave. And craft beer blew up. And you had the early third wave guys getting in on it and helping, I think, move it in really interesting ways. I think the third wave breweries were, I think, showing the first and second wave breweries new things and really cool ways to innovate and stuff like that, and how to be small.
And it was still one thing, right? It was everyone was looking at everyone else, and it was kind of a knowable amount.
Right.
You could you kind of understand every brewery. There were there's 1,000 of them maybe, but you could kind of get all the ones that were doing things that were important.
So then, and it was cool. And I think as things grew, and there was real distribution, real money, real attention, real focus. You just had to do things. These breweries had to do things differently. And I think it has continued to change to the point where now, we had the innovation, and this is kind of what I texted to you, the innovation episode with Doug, where, it was I forget, like something like that your dad used to say to you, and you were like not being truthful or technically truthful.
correct, intentionally misleading.
Right. So, all right, that might be a bit much. So, like, it's like, what is innovation? Yes, that is innovation to the definition.
The letter of the law.
Like putting a beer, putting your flagship beer in a stovepipe can, whatever they call those things. That is innovation, technically.
Yeah.
The mountains turning blue when the beer is as cold as the Rockies. That's innovation. But it's starting to go. We're trying to go in that direction. Like, I think that's what makes. So I want to sit with that a little bit. I think that's what makes it not cool. Is like that's the innovation is. How do we get into the multi-pack door? How do we get into...
This is also innovation in business to maximize revenue or profit margin, right? This is not innovation in let's explore. This is not artistic innovation or creative innovation. Someone might be mad at me for not saying this is creative. Maybe it's creative in a way that we don't colloquially think of as creative, right? So I think when these businesses necessarily have to change gears from we're just this crazy brewery that puts raisins in our quad, and we're brewing on a 1-barrel system, and then when you get to be like we're a top 5 brewery in the country, you have to think about those things differently, right?
Right. Creative, like creative can mean like Ponzi schemes are creative. Like
sure.
Scams are creative. Like,
right.
The guy who invented a same day loans, like that's a creative thing to do, but that doesn't mean that it's like creative.
Right. Creativity is not the end all and be all, but there was so much of craft beer and so much of the craft beer story up until that point that these, and whether or not it's explicit, these are creative entities, right? These are people who are
artisans.
Artisans.
And that's what they sold it as.
And you're right. And there's a genuine truth to what they are doing is creative for them, right? It is, like, as we said in that episode, that is true in every sense of the way it can be true, except for the one of the sniff test of, like, it doesn't, it's the same language you use, but it doesn't resonate in the same way as what people were thinking of as creative and or innovative before.
Mm-hmm. And really what I guess the bellwether for this was, and you brought up an excellent point right before,
nice.
Is like we should talk about why is it that whenever we were asking people about what year did they like turn a corner?
Yeah, when did you stop really like being as engaged or as like fully immersed in craft beer as you were before?
Right, or like when did the honeymoon period end? Essentially,
sure.
Right?
Yeah,
and everyone picked like the same year, essentially.
Pretty much everyone so far has said, like, when we stopped asking this question, but it's like 2016.
Right.
Early 2016, late 2016. Like, I don't know, 2016, 2015, or 2017 maybe, I don't know.
And I think these things are tied together, very much so.
Yeah.
And I think it has to do, now that we've looked up the years of all the big sales, so Lagunitas sold in 2015, Firestone Walker sold in 2015, Ballast Point sold in 2015. That was just like boom, boom, boom. And big breweries, quote unquote, falling is the way I was thinking of it.
Well, it's really hard to tell the story that we're counterculture creatives and innovators, like a word, when you fall to the same pressures of any capitalistic entity does eventually if they get big enough, right? So we've gotten to a point now where it's like, well, what else are they going to do? But they can't. Not everyone can be hair of the dog,
right?
Which is an admirable thing. And I love that, but it was the first time that they couldn't, or it couldn't really hide the fact that the reality was butting against the storytelling of what craft beer was.
And I do like one thing I like about the time period that this show has been on, like a lot was going on in beer, while this show has been on. So you can go back to like when the Lagunitas deal was announced.
He was on the show the week before.
Yeah, 2 weeks or something like
weeks.
that. Yeah. Or the Ballast Point deal or the Firestone Walker deal. And like you can listen to me be upset, distressed, distraught, and then resigned. And then you can hear when
you went through the stages of grief.
Right, or when I became, jaded or less. The honeymoon period ended for me. We all answered around the same time. Well, you can hear it happening to me in real time over the course of a year.
Right.
And I do remember, I would love to know an example, because it's happened a couple times, of an episode where this happened where people were like, these are businesses, man. Like, this is what it's supposed to be. These are business entities. You don't want the people to be able to, get paid for their long, hard work and, X, Y, Z. And at some point, I said something to the effect of, these are the breweries who sold this as counterculture, as artisan,
right,
as this, as that. And so I'm the idiot for believing it and starting a business and going down a career based on that.
Right.
I'm the idiot. Right. So either something changed or they were just duplicitous the entire time. And I was like, who knows what it was? Maybe it was a little bit of each. Maybe they were leaning in to the fact that they were this because that was an angle, you know?
It's usually both things are true at the same time in those situations, right? Where and the balance shifts over time. One is more true than the other. And this isn't saying that all those breweries were duplicitous, but that they knew that they were,
especially early on.
They
in
were
95,
more capitalistic.
I mean, come on.
Right.
They're not starting that stuff to become billionaires.
Right. That was never even possible.
Right.
But yeah, you see those things change and evolve over time.
Yeah.
Can we take a quick break? I gotta go to the bathroom.
All right. That's staying in. Okay, we're back. We are in a much more relieved state right now. Okay, so we were talking about people not necessarily being duplicitous and stuff like that.
But there was a rift between the story being told about the craft beers you were consuming and the behavior of the companies.
Right. So, I was trying to think okay, I was obviously a bleeding heart, and what does that mean? And
may I jump in and say I really hated this period because I didn't like feeling like some sort of naive idiot because I was upset by these things happening. Now that
this
I don't know if you were
you
going
and me
there or
bonded,
not, but
over this sort of stuff, because you and I were very much of yes. I don't like that period either, but I am going there.
Okay.
And
I didn't mean to rush it. If that not at all.
No, I'm just BSing. But I realized, or I came to a decision that probably with a lot of other things or movements, not that was necessarily, whatever, it was a movement. It was not the most important movement, not by a long shot.
No, it was a culturally significant
It
happening.
Didn't matter if they were duplicitous or not, if we were being sold a bill of goods, because if we did want it to be like that, we could make it like that. We could make it more genuine. Maybe they were genuine and maybe they changed, right? Or maybe it was always being sold a bill of goods. But I came to decide, it doesn't have to be like that. It could be real, even if it wasn't. And
I think there was also some perceived trajectory for a club we felt like we were a part of, right? Wow, when Lagunitas got into an airport, or when Lagunitas got onto planes, or when they got into stadiums, we're like, wow, that's part of us. We're we could do that. Not that we could do that, but Yeah, like that's part of the team.
It's happening. Craft beer is going to take over. It's
Right.
taking over.
Right. And then it would be like, and there was probably some naivete of like that someday, like it would open wider to more like smaller breweries and stuff like that. And some of that actually is true and has come to fruition. Like the Sox Park has like a lot of craft beer options from like local and independent and self-distributed breweries. It's pretty cool. Like that didn't happen before that. But there was this thing of like, and this was something I think people said a lot, is that a rising tide lifts all boats in this period, right? We're like, oh, if we're getting in here, it means that like it's better. If we get into the Walmart set, then it means it's going to be probably easier for you to get in the Walmart set. And it's like, who knows what the true knowledge of people saying that were, but it hasn't happened.
No.
And so,
and the big guys came in and bought. Goose Island, I think, gets the most blame because they were first.
Right.
But they all did it equally,
Right.
And,
well, I remember that show I was referring to where Tony McGee was on 2 weeks before he sold to Heineken, and him telling this story of like he went out to a lunch with Budweiser and said he would rather put his thumbs through his eyes than sell it to Budweiser. And we're all just like, this is the coolest guy in the world. Oh my God, he's so smart. And then 2 weeks later, he sells out to Heineken. And then now we're like talking about, well, is it different to sell it to Budweiser? Because like they're the ones that have been like closing down Rolling Rock and stuff. And it's like, I guess if that's the conversation you want to have, probably. But is it really? What was he? And not a singular person, but like he was telling us a story in a way that I was internalizing it as this guy is independent.
You're hearing what you wanted to hear.
Yeah.
And he wasn't lying. He wasn't
being disingenuous. He was being honest about that meeting.
Yes.
But it is like, I wanted to be like, man, this guy's going to like be independent forever. Right.
Right. He hates Budweiser and everything Budweiser and that type of brewery stands for, where it's like, no, he hates Budweiser because he's now in competition with Budweiser.
Right, and I bet if we went back and we listened to it, he never said, I hate that type of brewery. He said he hated Budweiser.
Right.
So,
right.
Like, again, not nefarious, but intentionally correct, or technically correct.
Yes.
That one to me was intentionally misleading.
Yes, I agree.
I remember how much Edmar loved him too, and then,
oh my gosh, and that's great. I mean, one of the silver linings of that is being able to just blast Edmar forever over the way he was just gushing. Mm-hmm. But like, we're in it, right? Yeah, you're leading us all. You're leading the charge, man, and that whole thing.
Yep. But that's exactly what we're talking about. And he kept saying it's open field running.
Yeah,
and that's what it felt like.
Yeah, it did.
Then
a lot of big breweries. Thought it was too, and dumped a ton of money. I think a lot of the breweries that are in big trouble now probably are incredibly leveraged,
right.
And were trying to be sold or trying to. I think at first it was people trying to get big so they could explode. I think Tony realized it was to be bought.
Right. Well, I mean,
and I don't think everyone else necessarily realized that.
In hindsight, obviously, when you look at it, you're like, there aren't that many other options. You can't perpetually leverage yourself or take on money at valuations that don't represent your cash flow.
Yeah, zombie breweries, man. He wrote about it.
Right. So like you can't just do that without having like it's passing it up. Like just like.
Here's a sidebar. I wonder if Tony McGee's blog posts are still available, still out there.
I mean, the Wayback Machine exists on the internet. I'm sure if you
worth looking at, guys. Some of his stuff was
like legit tip of the spear type.
Oh my gosh! Great blog posts, especially to go back and read now. I really actually want to read.
It would probably give you a really good idea of the vibe of the time. Like, there's absolutely no way this probably doesn't exist anymore at all, but like a brewery that like would be sold to a multi-billion-dollar international conglomerate would be on a blog writing kind of first person narrative style things about like the
Not
financial,
the brewery, the singular owner, founder of the brewery.
right?
Like
Right. That
the
would
guy.
be that person, and that there wouldn't be some sort of team telling him, no, you can't do that. You have to do like we have to tell. Well, we should add this. We use these terms. That was just it felt and seemed like, and the content seemed to be pretty raw. Of like, this is what's happening with our brewery.
And you had access,
to a-
more or less, to
yeah.
these people.
Right. And like not just stuff that's like, oh yeah, we use Cascade hops in it now, but like private equity, how they affect your business and bring it on. It wasn't like detailed of like, here's what you should do, but it was like, there is the possibility and it's like the likelihood of breweries. It would go interesting to go back and see like
His whole
how, like what he said zombie breweries would look at like,
Yeah.
and then see like if we could spot some.
he meant them as, I think, like breweries eating each other and stuff like that. But
No, I think he meant it as like breweries
They're dead.
in name only, where they're the
Right.
Walking Dead. Like
They're Walking
you
Dead.
still like I don't
they
know.
have so much
like
debt to service that they're dead. They're gonna
and
sell.
none of the people that thought of the ideas or made it what it is exist, but there's brand equity and there's infrastructure. So whatever thing owns it, like the private equity that took it over because they didn't sunset what they needed to, is calling the shots, and it just like is brainless and walking and making the things that will make it the most money. Which I'm sure if we were to, like, I think that's what he was talking about. I'm sure if we wanted to do a hard analysis, we could find a lot of them.
Now that would be fun to go back and like read his. We could do an episode on that. Just go and read some of his stuff, and then like go back and just talk about it.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, you guys should go back and read some of his blog posts.
we'll have to go
Very
find 'em.
interesting. Yeah.
Were they on the Lagunitas website?
I don't even remember. They probably
They
were.
had to have been, right?
They probably were.
All right, well, I'll get some way back. We'll get
right.
Serge on it. He's
Exactly.
a science guy.
So anyway, so we've got, so that's where we were, and now we're at a place where breweries that don't have anywhere near the cultural or market dominance within craft beer that Lagunitas did at the time, where everybody was in awe of just this rocket ship that was Lagunitas. Relatively much smaller breweries, probably literally two, but culturally much smaller.
I mean, Mars,
Right.
Pipeworks, like we all were
I'm
looking at
talking
them
about-
being like, oh my God.
Right, but I mean, like, even nowadays, like, so my point being, like, breweries that are today much smaller than them, but are still big. So let's talk about, like, Rheingeist and Rev and, I don't know, like, name a whatever big brewery there is.
Well, this is also like an era when
Allagash.
there were breweries that were trying to do what they did or what Ballast Point did and whiffed.
Maybe.
Like Green
Right.
Flash. Remember Green Flash?
Sure. Yeah.
I think that was an example of them trying to do it, and it just missed by maybe a couple of months when valuations were not what they thought they were going to be. And what that means is that
When they messed up, I think they maybe, who knows what they were trying to do. They were trying to also grow, because I can't even imagine being in San Diego at the time, watching Ballast Point, watching Stone just like detonate, watching Lagunitas right up the street, like right up
but
the
Stone
coast.
Stone didn't sell, did they? They're still
No,
like,
they didn't. But watching them grow, and then they wanted to do it too.
well, this might be one of those things like when we have this nostalgic thing of like, what's happened to Stone? They didn't get the bag, and they're basically as culturally relevant to us, to you and I, as Lagunitas is. Like, Lagunitas is probably more at this point. But like, when's the last time you had a beer from either one of those places?
Right. Yeah.
And then maybe that's a factor of the Chicago market and the changing there for Stone. But like, I when you look back at breweries that got that big, it's not like we all revere Stone for not selling out at this point.
True.
It's like we're all just like, oh yeah, that kind of sucks for them, huh? Like,
Right.
yeah.
But yeah, so we got sidetracked.
Sorry.
No. That's fine. Or I got sidetracked. Not we. So what I was trying to get at was, now those same breweries or breweries that are smaller, relatively speaking, but they're still the big ones of today. Because all the giants, I think have sold, except for Sierra Nevada, except for them. All the big guys have sold at this point. They're gone. Like it's like the Lorax or something.
It's like the beer scene is Detroit,
right?
Like that. Like all of our big guys are shadows are gone or bought out by something and moved to China.
And the big breweries that are left, like a lot of what you see is them moving in this marketplace that does not have a lot of open field running. So what are you doing? Right. So you're innovating by doing different cans, by doing brand extensions, by doing big boy, mature, grown-up stuff.
Right.
You know? And that's not fun. That's not cool.
It's not sexy. It's not something that you can like come on this podcast and talk about and everyone's like, oh, damn, I didn't know they were doing that. That's crazy. And it's...
and playing big boy games, too. Like, we got to do this market set. We got to do that. We got to, it's not about, I don't know, like, I don't know, the individual local store, the local bar, and I'm not saying that as...
And genuinely, those decisions are not about connecting to the consumer in the same way that other decisions are, right? It's certainly still about connecting and providing to the consumer or the drinker or the fan in a way, but it's not the same as like it was before, where it's like...
Yeah, it's share of throat now, which is a term that I heard somebody say at CBC. I heard somebody...
I've said that on this podcast.
Oh,
That's a Pepsi term.
Yeah, I heard somebody saying it in some beer sales guy was talking about share of throat at a talk, and it's more like that. That's a good way to sum it up.
Like unnecessarily,
right.
What the word like gauche is what I was going to say, but that's not quite right.
But it's perfect in a way because I think it gets to the
perfectly betrays that person's true feelings about, and they might be saying it like pseudo-ironically, but no one says that pseudo-ironically that doesn't partially believe it.
Right.
And it's just we're selling widgets to people that have money.
Our widgets is craft beer.
Right.
And getting back to what Pat Berger was saying, that's not cool. Like,
no.
Like putting out a new multi-pack or putting out a new... I don't know, like whatever, like what's the big thing? Rosé ales? Okay, yeah, our new rosé ale, like whatever it is, like
cold IPA.
Right, right, exactly.
I'm here for the cold IPA movement. If there's any question on that, but it is like
like whatever it is, like if it were a cold IPA, I'm not hating on cold IPA. I'm hating on the concept of were it to be cold IPA, we're making a cold IPA because that's what people are making,
right?
That thing.
Right.
Or we got to get in on this set because our flagship beer is lagging behind. So our big goal this whole quarter is really like the whole place is really excited and really behind, getting, Cardboard Box Pale Ale, our flagship. I'm saying that because I'm just picking anything, and there's cardboard boxes all over the place here. Getting Cardboard Box Pale Ale into a 19-2 6-pack because that'll really allow bars and large venues to buy them in bulk and sell them individually, and that's a missing market, and we're really like that's our main focus for this quarter. Well, like that's big boy, big girl stuff to talk about, but it's not cool.
It's a fundamental shift away from brewery as cultural leader in the space of craft brewing to brewery as a reflector of culture, right? And that I'm specifically putting by Hulk. I'm specifically putting that in the choice and of of beer to produce and sell, right? It's a shift from like we make it because we like it and we want to like share it with you,
right?
To like it is a big boy version of the kids like it, So how do we get it to them?
Yeah.
Which there's some value to, but it's not the craft beer we grew up on. I feel like it's what you and I specifically lament.
Right.
And these are important decisions that have to be made by these breweries that might have previously been the ones saying, "Hey, we're making the beers that we like, and come get them."
Yeah.
But it's a different shift, and like it creates a different vibe around.
Sure. So that's where we have for the guys who have gotten the breweries, the folks that have gotten. I don't want to genderize this, but yeah, the ones that have gotten kind of big and matured and have to worry about this sort of stuff now. Like
right.
This is what keeps the lights on.
Right. And let it not be lost that that thing that keeps the light on at one point was that crazy, creative, innovative thing that you and I desire and now lament so much. Like most of these places, they're not just like pop up and then there's like, let's make some derivative thing. Most of them have had a voice, and that's why they are where they are.
Yes.
And so let's not pretend like we're not giving
and still
those
probably and still have a voice, but the voice is just speaking a different language, not one that we don't understand, but it's just a different language.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that it's not like us just straight up hating on these breweries, being like,
no,
you got here mostly because you had the thing that we loved so much,
right?
And I still respect that from most of these breweries.
Sure. Yes, I completely agree with that. So now, just like I think we're talking about like late third wave breweries. So most of them are on the smaller side. They're the long tail, the classic long tail.
You're talking about that's what we're seeing now, or that's where we.
Well, let's talk about it. No,
okay.
not that we're there now, but now let's talk about that. So, a little bit of a hot take history-ish thing.
Yeah.
So now we're talking like
a retroactive hot take history of like our personal experiences with beer industry.
Why beer is not cool.
Yeah. Hot take history of coolness.
So we've got these breweries that maybe thought that they could get there and explode and become the next Lagunitas or Stone or something like that. Few and far between. Now you've got smaller breweries that were looking to connect and kind of have be like white hot at a very small scale and be kind of very cool, very lucrative. We're talking like own premise now, like really kind of like pulling in. I think we saw a lot of like pulling together of the beer industry, of the supply side. Do you remember like everyone was like banding together? This was happening right before COVID too, where it's like they really wanted to operate outside as much as possible, 3-tier. They wanted to collaborate. You had the home and away collaborations, which just still kind of happens where it's like everything, like you release my special beer in your tap room. I'll release your special beer in my tap room. And you're like, you guys are the worst. You suck. You suck. So,
I think there was one example of this where you were like the supposed the brewer was saying the collaboration happens at the release, not at the brewing of the thing.
Yes.
And so they would come out for the release of the beer, not the actual production of the beer. And that's symptomatic or maybe emblematic of what we were talking about.
Right. We're going to do a collaboration, a.k.a. you brew a beer and I come out and we do a little fest and we pour some of my beer. It's a marketing-driven collab,
right.
Essentially, not a creative collab. It's a marketing collab.
And it should be said that like the what felt like to us the cultural center of what was smart, hot, cool, important beer moved from this. Like this isn't exactly right, but moved from the collaboration happens when we produce the thing to the collaboration happens from when we release the thing. Right, that like the fact that I'm going to come out to Colorado, wherever you are, at the release of this, rather than when you're going to make it.
Well, collaborations were moneyballed.
Right.
They've been money. They became moneyballed.
But
where
the awareness and acceptance that like the marketing and sales of this is more important than the production of this.
Right. Well, why are we doing a collab to boost sales? What's the most efficient way to do it? Versus why are we doing a collab? Because those are my friends. I want to make a fun beer with them.
Or because these are creative. We want to share creative ideas and actually produce something together.
Yeah. So I think then the breweries that were coming around, the ones that were making the biggest names, were doing it. They were kind of this more of a cool kid vibe. They were almost like they were on like different like festival circuits. It was very like money making driven. It seemed to me.
Yeah, exposure and esteem and all of those things that should lead to making money. But I think it was also like there's some
hype.
Yeah,
hype driven, I guess.
Hype.
When I say money making, I guess that's not fair because people are like, well,
it's an assumption that hype will turn into money, but it's like, attention seeking.
But that's like when you wanted to show how fast your beer sold out, how long your lines were, how like you were doing things like people were saying people were even like breweries were gaming how fast things blew. They were intentionally hyping things up and trying to get as long a line as possible, and then taking a picture of how long the line is to manufacture hype. Manufacturing consent of hype.
Yeah, which it's very. It seems like a very pre-COVID thing to do. To be like, there are so many people that are going to come to our tap room. You should also be one of them, right?
Right.
That was the goal.
Hey, I mean,
And it could be a genuine thing too, right? Like I remember we did one release when I was at Pipeworks that was at Emporium for a Run the Jewels thing, and I took the video of how long the line was just 'cause I was like, this is insane, and it was just genuinely that. It wasn't like let's like try to hype this up, but that
was for a pop-up event that was ephemeral. It wasn't too like so a lot of times when I saw those lines, it was they were trying to help sell their next beer when they were doing that. I don't think when you're showing a pop-up line, it's like, well, next time we do a pop-up, I want people to be in line for it.
Right.
Because if you like Run the Jewels, you're going to love Harry Potter. It's like, whatever. So
probably true, but it's things people love.
And I really didn't like those two things together. I didn't like the selling out. I didn't like the maturing.
The selling out meaning running out of beer, or selling out the way we were talking about like 5 minutes ago?
Yeah, sorry. The Lagunitas style selling out. I didn't like even if it's inevitable, I didn't like the kind of maturing of the other players, which I think is actually happening now. I might have made a little bit of a jump, but I didn't like how the little guys were, the guys who were supposed to replace them, just their, to quote the Big Lebowski and the sheriff of Malibu, I didn't like their jerk off faces. I just didn't like.
You wanted them to stay at your beach community.
I just didn't like the way they were kind of. It just didn't resonate with me.
Right.
Like this, like the line culture, the hype, the trading, the hoarding, the hobbyism of in that way. It was just very different.
It didn't make sense to me either.
And I just think I've never like that era, which again now we're talking like a 2 or 3 or 4 year period again.
Yeah, but a very formative one.
I did not like it, not at all. Also, probably didn't like it because one, that's not how I wanted to drink beer. 2, I felt like they were trying to shut out my business, or at the very least, like didn't have an appreciation or didn't place much importance on like beer bars and stuff like that, where I still think that's the best place to drink beer, because you can try a whole bunch of beers. If you're into drinking craft beers,
right,
there is something cool, and we've talked about this a lot, about going to the source.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Like when I'm traveling, I want to go to these places, but it's still like I'm not going to sit at Russian River's tap room. Like I'm going to go to a beer bar that has like the 2 or 3 best Russian Rivers and Bear Republic.
Russian River might be a bad example because they have 21 great beers on draft, Chris.
Fine.
And you can get them all in a flight.
Yeah, exactly. Right. A 21 beer flight. Exactly what I want to be doing. And that's a brew pub. So, like, that's even better than just a straight up tap room. But any of them, like Firestone Walker, like any of my favorite breweries, like I'm not just going to go to Firestone Walker and just, like, I love all their beers, but it's like, it's just not what I'm going to do.
I do think you're in the minority on this, though.
Oh, for sure.
Like, when I go somewhere and like I never influence these decisions. People are like, let's go to this XYZ brewery. No one's ever like, let's go to this like well-renowned craft beer bar. But there's also now at this point
when you travel, but when you're in Chicago,
but you're saying Russian River. So if that's why I was thinking like,
I'm sorry,
Santa Rosa, like,
I'm sorry, and you're right. My mind does not. Not everyone can read my mind. If I lived there,
sure,
right. So, like, if
I come here a lot more
there,
than I go to any brewery that's not my own brewery. So.
I go to like all my favorite places to go drink beer at are bars here in Chicago.
Sure,
because they're just the best places to drink. I mean, they just are.
I think that
they don't have
probably
to be.
Agree with that, depending on what the bar is and what the brewery is. But I don't know if people feel that way anymore. Like when I go to Detroit with my girlfriend, like her family that is only vaguely aware of craft beer, they don't go to craft beer bars. They go to the brewery. They go to like Baffin, or they go to Dragon's Mead, or they go to these places that are like places that I've been to and had a great time. But like I'm like, I would rather like go to a place I can get a bunch of these things. Or sometimes I want to go I want to go to Faison, or if we're talking about like I want to see what this like Belgian brewery is about. So I think that a lot of people have replaced the idea of like, let's go try a bunch of different beers from different breweries. Like that's too confusing because it's just like too all over the place. Like, well, this brewery has, if they have a brown ale, then I'm like, it's going to be the only one, or like if they have this thing. So, that could be part of this like, third and a half wave. Is that where we're at? What we're talking about, like the three plus wave of like the tap room or becomes the local beer bar, because a lot of these places don't have like a beer bar like the Beer Temple or Hop Leaf or Map Room like Chicago has, or
specialty bar like or German bars or Belgian bars or
we're
English
here.
Bars or this or that, or whiskey bars with a great draft list like Delilah's.
When people come here to Chicago, if I'm hosting people, I hardly ever bring them to breweries. In fact, I will never bring them to my brewery. I'll bring them here, or I'll bring them to like Recipes Hooten Bar, or I would bring them to like a German spot, or I would bring them to the Map Room or something. Like, because like that's like that's what I think of as a culture here.
Yeah, the vibes are better, I think.
Yeah, it's just also yes, I think that is largely true. The vibes are cooler at these spots.
So,
that's not to hate on any breweries in Chicago.
Oh, come on,
your
guys!
Vibes are cool.
You guys all know. Come on, and you guys are doing just fine in your tap rooms. You don't have to worry about me and what I think. The bar owner, like, of course, I'm going to have my opinions. You know, I'm sure I could have opened up or joined a brewery, worked at a brewery. I never wanted to. Just wasn't my thing.
You're in the right spot. Yeah, you're in the right spot for who you are.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So like I was definitely like that to me was peak. Beer is not cool.
Yeah.
Like, and I was like, I'm just like, and I was like, well, I'm just going to deal with out of market beers and imports and stuff like that, and find little diamonds in the rough and kind of do that sort of thing because, you know, if you don't want to play with me, then I'm okay. I'll just like do my own thing over here, and I'm cool with that. But it also was like a bummer in a way.
Was that where the consumer was at, though, when you were making that decision? Were they like, I want to find this weirdo brown ale or whatever? Not that it's a brown ale, but like...
Relevant, because they would go to taproom only releases. It was all about like hype and...
But was it... Were those different circles in a Venn diagram that people went to taproom only releases? They didn't come here?
No, it was... No, there was overlap, for sure.
And of those people that were overlapping, what do you think? This is all hot takey and intuitive. Mm-hmm. What do you think they were buying here when they came here?
It was a mix. I think some people were beer fans who also liked the hype, and some people were still looking for the things that you could get at a bottle shop. They were looking for the same thing, but some you had to go to a bottle shop for, and some you had to go to the tap room for. Or some you could get at a bottle shop, you know.
There was certainly we have to write this down for Surge, but the shittiest era was when it was the things that didn't sell at the brewery release got trickled out into distro. That was the worst.
Yeah. It's funny. A lot of these things that we've said are the worst. You can like trickle back to like just a few. Like certain breweries are guilty of multiples of these. But
sure. But that was certainly the worst version for beer lovers and consumers. That was like, if it didn't sell at our pre-timed release, then maybe a couple cases would be offered.
Lucky you. You
as the beer buyer.
We've been really, we're so happy that we finally have enough beer for some of it to get out to distro. So, how much do you want? Hey, checking in again.
This is the one that no one wanted to buy from us.
Right.
So, do you want to sell it to the people at your store?
Right. And then, eventually they're opening up new markets and dumping it there, I guess. This would be the next step.
No comment.
Yeah. So...
Did I tell you we were sending some beer to Europe?
So that's where. So I think now I think we're a little bit past that point. I hope
2022. We're past that. You think we're?
Yeah, I think we're a little bit past it, or maybe it's just things haven't fully opened up yet, and who knows. But I think things have somewhat changed. I think for the better, but whether they've changed, how they've changed, I'm kind of curious in how does beer become cool again? I have some ideas. I'm curious what your ideas are.
How does it become cool again? This is obviously very specific to me, but I think it involves breweries returning to making
12-person
tiny 12-person, high impact 12-person parties, making things that they genuinely believe in again, and that being the focus, not just the every once in a while we let our brewers go crazy style thing, like that. There are breweries that are smaller and intentional about it, and intended to be creative places that know they're commercial entities but aren't fully driven by it, which again, like, this is the thing where I'm very insecure about seeming like some sort of naive doofus, but I think that part of what attracted me to craft beer in the first place was that it seemed like these were creative places first and businesses second, and I think that was purposefully sold. Like all this like skate culture and hippie culture and all of that was because of that, right?
Punk culture.
But it's also just something that I can't tell at this point in my life how much of it comes from being into beer at that point and how much is just innate in who I am and my values. But there is space for creative entities that happen to be breweries, as long as they understand that they are breweries, right? I don't think I'm some sort of pure artist making visual art, but I am someone who puts a lot of myself and my creativity and my time and thoughts and energy into making beers that are genuine expressions of who I am and who the people that help me brew these beers are. And I think that beer becomes cool again if there's more breweries doing that while also being smart business owners or stewards of the actual, like the goal of making money is to be able to make more beer, not the goal of making beer is to make more money. I think is there has to be something of like I live a life outside of the beer, so it has to be able to fund my life and the life of the people that help me. But
15 years from now, you'll probably want it to be easier.
Absolutely.
So you'll be wanting to make a little more money and a little more sustainable and stuff like that.
Right. But I'm not trying to make a million barrels of beer.
No.
I'm trying to make $1 million over the course of my entire life, maybe.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be a millionaire. But
no, me either. And I'm not trying to even have to set up the next generation, like my kids. Like it's not supposed to be that for my kids either. It's just like
unless
if this is something that like
owning a shop.
Yeah, like they wanted to do that and they want to take it over, like cool, awesome. But that is, I doubt will happen because they think beer is incredibly uncool, and they're right, obviously. That's what we're talking about. But I think similar to what you're saying, maybe to put it in a different way, is to be aware, to kind of focus on the craft, have the confidence to know that what you're making is good, and then putting it out there for people to find and discover rather than, it's like, marketing, over-marketing or marketing-driven. Like, you need to have marketing, but then you can have, like, that hype and stuff like that. Like, I see that now, and it's like, I don't like that. Like, I don't...
Yeah. Where does that... I don't know. I don't understand where that exists anymore. I don't engage with it, I guess, but I just don't see that as, like, a viable business model the way it was when in the eras we were talking about.
I mean, here, we make fun of that sort of stuff. We make fun of, like, the Tavor shots, we call them, where they have pictures of, like, beer with, like, food items.
The food items that went into the beer.
Yeah,
or the extracts that
like
the food items that went into the beer.
Pouring over the beer, so it's like a glass that is just like, for example, has like butterscotch and caramel sauce just like dripping down the side of the glass, and it's got like, like whipped cream like running down the side of it and all over the base of it, and there's like cookie crumbles everywhere, and it looks like the least appetizing thing that I could want. I don't want to touch that glass.
Right.
I don't want to drink out of that glass.
That's not what people are thinking, though.
I mean, I would rather go to a sundae. I'd rather go to a sundae shop and get like an amazing made sundae, which would taste better than that thing any day of the week.
This is a sidebar, but I think it's something that you and I agree on. That was like, I don't understand the desire for beer to taste like things that I don't actually eat or drink. Like, I don't drink juice. I'm a 33-year-old adult male. I haven't had a glass of orange juice in 12 years. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't eat that much ice cream. It makes me feel sick at this point in my life. Like, why I don't eat that much sugar. Like, why do you want these things to taste like the? And that's purely an aside, but like part of us kind of not understanding what was going on at that point is like, why do you want? I guess these things are good. Like, I'll eat sundaes every once in a while, like, a few times a year. But why do you want the thing you're going to drink on Saturday to taste like that?
Your alcohol
and
to be
like
10
that, and to be so high in alcohol, and like there was a very scary time for me where I felt wholly disconnected from the beer consumer, where like the people that when I was working at Pipeworks, I thought I knew very well. Like the people that were tuned in, the people that wanted the new thing, and then like there was a certain point where I'm like, I have no idea what these desires are, and I don't align with them. And yeah, sorry just for the sidebar, but I didn't get that era. And I think there's still some of that happening, but I think we're not as quite as deep in that at being the central focal point of craft beer's culture.
I will say one thing that makes me a little happy and proud. That's just total sidebar, but it's of that idea. We're talking about Sundays and stuff like that. So at this end of my street is a Margie's, which is like 100-year-old ice cream shop. This is their second one. This one's not 100 years old, but it's whatever. And it's kind of like beat up on the inside and like some torn vinyl.
But it's a classic.
And then a brand new Culver's opened up. Yeah. Right next to it. Mm-hmm. Shiny. They've got like M&Ms and Reese's Pieces and Oreos that they can put inside it. Like they don't even do concretes at Margie's. Like they do like banana splits and stuff like that.
Scoops of ice cream with stuff on top of the ice cream.
Yeah. Both of them. Like Katie's not as big into desserts. Charlie, big time, is. Where does he want to go?
Margie's.
Yeah.
He's your boy.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's great. Like he wants to go to Margie's, sit down and have a sundae, or even just stand at the window and get an ice cream cone and leave. And I was like, that's right. That's good. Good boy.
Yeah, good job.
Nothing wrong with the concrete from Culver's, but it's cool that he, for whatever reason, just prefers the other one.
You know, I eat so little ice cream, I didn't put the two and two together that like Culver's probably went in there to steal some of that shine.
I would think.
But now it makes
a lot of sense. And it works with a lot of people. I mean, I see people coming out there with ice cream all the time.
Yeah.
But anyway, you know, my little boy is like, I want to go to Margie's. Like, that's a big deal for him. And then if it's like, oh, Margie's is close, okay, we can go to Culver's, I guess. And he'll be fine with that. I mean, he's not going to be upset.
Right.
But anyway, a little bit of a sidebar. So now I think, I want breweries to
represent something. Sorry, I didn't mean to finish.
Right. No, I want them to brew what they want to brew with intention, and then find an audience through marketing of it. I don't want them to look online at what's hot and then use that as their test marketing and say, oh, okay, that's what we have to do. Like, the Tavour shots should be an anomaly of one brewery. Like, that's the thing that they do.
Sure.
Like, that should be what Southern Tier does and has been doing for 20 years, and they always do this crazy stuff. And you, like, hate them, but then begrudgingly, after 20 years, you're like, that's just what they do, man. That's them. Yeah. And they're true to who they are.
Right.
It should not be
the default.
Fucking craft breweries or craft beer bars are doing it. Like, look what we have on tap. Or like stores or stuff like that. It's like, and they're playing to their audience. I'm sure they're getting a response from it. But like, what the hell is that? What is that?
I mean,
are we children? Like,
I mean, probably.
But anyway, I want to get. We bitch about that shit so much. It's so easy. It's so fun to do.
It's just so delicious.
It's so fun. It's so delicious. I guess I do. I'm addicted to them as well because I'm addicted to trashing them.
Very negative response to them.
But I've been so happy to see people responding to just like regular beers. Some from breweries that they had forgotten about or maybe have never even heard of at this point. Who've kind of been hiding in plain sight the whole time, and then other breweries who are new and doing like great examples of that sort of stuff and just like interesting, weird things. I mean, we have an Old Irving brewery brewing barley wine with mushrooms, in it. Yeah,
it's delicious.
Yeah, we have I think On Tour has been like killing it with some of their like classic stuff. I gotta give a shout out to Spiteful for that Spite Light.
Oh yeah, delicious little 4-something% IPA.
Great beer.
Or Obsession IPA. Well,
Right.
We can just call them IPAs now, right?
Yeah, it's just an IPA.
But I also love that like it's Spite Light, like that the idea that like a light lager would be like Bud Light, but like what they do is mostly
That.
hoppy beer. So the light version of that is a 4-point-something%. Mm-hmm. Simcoe, maybe
probably,
Mosaic
yes.
hop thing.
Yeah.
That we all were up there drinking and loving.
Yeah, and it's draft only, I believe. They might do some cans on site. Who knows? That's the sort of stuff that I dig. Just like finding that sort of stuff, and who knows? Maybe their distributor was like, we need a light beer in the marketplace. I don't think that was.
Maybe not. Who knows?
I mean, I know that there's a big craft distributor who has definitely told their local breweries, like, we need light beers, because like all of a sudden 2 of them came out with like sub 4 beers.
We're
like,
putting out a
boom, boom.
3.2% beer next.
Yeah, actually one of them was sub 3.
Sub 3.
Yeah, that's
awesome.
so low.
So low. Yeah.
Like that is, I below 3. I'm not sure you can actually get. Not that the point is to get drunk, but I don't think you can get drunk on a sub 3 beer. You have to work really hard. Like I'd like to see anyone like below a 0.1 on a breathalyzer.
0.08 is the
from let's say a 0.1.
Okay.
Fine, 0.08 from Stiegel Radler. That's 2.5. I just don't think it's possible, man. Like you'd have to drink so much.
This sounds like an event where you guys have to buy some breathalyzers and get some Stiegel Radlers.
You have to drink a lot of them. So
Can you get to 0.08 and no higher?
Exactly.
Responsibly. Can you get to 0.08 responsibly with this 2.5% beer?
I mean, and will you be having an enjoyable time doing it? Like, I think you'd have to
you'd be uncomfortably full.
And doing it to do it. Not because I'm enjoying these Radlers. What do you know? I blew a 0.08.
Sure.
I just don't think it's possible.
But I think there's some people that want to drink a beer, but it would taste like beer, but don't want to get drunk. Yeah,
for sure.
And it's fully NA beer is great, but there's something like 2.3 or 3 point whatever. That's that's enough. You can get flavors out of that too. That's not gonna get you real drunk.
Nah, not at all.
Yeah.
So
where are we at now? Is this where we're at now?
I think this is where we're at. I think if we go down this path, I think beer will be it'll be actually cool, because something that is in the spotlight as the coolest thing is almost by definition not going to be cool for long.
Right.
But if it can just be this thing, this subculture of craft beer, I'm saying.
Right. Cool things.
That could be sustainably cool.
Does
people who are looking for stuff and want to know a little bit about where it's made, and may also just want to go to Target and pick up a 15-pack of a local brewery.
Yeah.
That's totally fine.
So there's still more and more breweries, but does beer feel less noisy to you now than it did pre-pandemic? Just to put that as a point. It doesn't. I don't know if it has anything to do with that, but 2.5 years ago, does beer feel less noisy? Because it feels way less noisy to me.
Yes, I think there's less hype drops. Everything is everyone was
2.5 years of not being able to say, "Hey, come line up and get this thing." As pivoted things.
We have to have you have to come out for this, and you have to come out for that, you have to come out for this, you have to come out for that, and then this is dropping, and then that's dropping, and you're just beleaguered with it.
And is this good? It feels good, but is it good?
I think it's good.
Okay.
I think it's good. Now, we're you have said on this show in the past, I mean, it means that people are going to move on to the next thing. So
Yeah.
So it's going to be a smaller market, but it's going to be a more enjoyable, more sustainable, better market, because I think the people who get in on that stuff aren't going anywhere.
Sure.
Like I'm going to be drinking craft beer. I mean,
to get in like
for
the
at least another
miles
5
and things
years.
of that. Yeah.
No, I mean for the rest of my life. Like I don't think I'm going to become a whatever, like a craft cocktail guy. Like just it's not going to happen. Like you make me a cocktail, that's fine. I'm not making myself a bunch of cocktails. I'm not going to be busting out egg whites at my house and doing that sort of stuff.
I do those things.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be doing it. And I think that I think just kind of settling in and having like interesting new is fine. I think new is part of craft beer. I think the seasonality.
I think it's so baked in at this point. It
I
got
think
crazy
it always
for a
kind of
while.
has been.
Yeah.
It was moneyballed, man. I mean, it just got a little too moneyballed, and I think people need to like back the F off a little bit.
I think they have.
Yeah.
I think they have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they have.
And I think the consumer ability to pay attention has also just not gone away. But there's like, okay, all right, enough.
Right.
That's wholly speculative. Because
what do I want to do this weekend? I guess I could hang out with friends. I could even like sit in my backyard. I could go to this event, or I could stand in a line.
Right.
Like, who the hell wants to do that?
They're not. Well, they're also just not novel experiences. If every brewery, or not every brewery, this is again hyperbolic, but like if the cool kid breweries or whatever, the enough breweries in your region are like, our stuff's really hard to get, you got to come and stand in line for it. It becomes not a novel experience anymore if there's like 3 of those places.
And again, there'll probably be a sub culture of that stays around.
Yeah.
Of the people who it's so underground, it's so hyped, it's so limited release and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But those people are probably going to have to work harder.
I mean, I don't even know if it is. Like maybe they're probably in clubs, or they're probably doing
Right.
razzles. Like things have migrated from the physical space like that into some other things. Is there beer you would wait in line for?
I'm sure there is a beer that I would wait in a line for.
Fresh Coniston Bluebird Bitter.
Right. And how long of a line? All right, how long of a line?
You have to wait an hour to get 1 8-ounce pour, or 2 if you're with someone else.
So on premise. So it's not a bottle to take with me.
Sure. Yeah.
So I think that's an easy.
Like,
Yeah,
I was thinking about it on draft. I don't know. I've never done
right.
one of these.
It's always a takeaway thing, right?
I guess.
Would
so,
I
yeah.
wait in line to buy a bottle of something
Coniston
I then
Bluebird
leave
Bitter.
with?
Yeah.
It'd have to be a really special to me beer.
Westy 13.
Exactly. Exactly. Westy 13.
Yeah.
I would actually not wait in line for a Westy 13. I'm trying to think of like what would it be? It would probably have to be like Jean Van Was like retiring. This is my final blend.
And you would bring Katie. You'd carry
Right.
her like a baby.
Exactly.
And say, you
My
must hold,
back
hold her.
killing me
Yeah.
after an hour. But like something like that. Like this is where you can get it. Just show up and get it.
So
And I don't even know if I would for that.
So it's
But
like the 4th wave.
I guess. I mean, because the other thing is that you and I have learned is those special beers, it's just none of it transcends beer, man.
Yeah.
It's still fucking beer, and you don't have to have. I don't feel like I need to have literally that bottle to be able to be like, damn, Jean had a good run. He was an amazing person for beer. Like, that was awesome. I don't need to
I can feel those feelings without having that bottle.
Right. I can feel the feelings without having that bottle. Yeah. Now, if it was waiting 1 hour and I didn't have to, like, fly to Belgium for it or something like that, like, yeah. Now, like, Weichstefan's in 2014, 40, it's their 1,000th anniversary. Like, if they have
Their
an event,
1,000th anniversary?
yeah, dude. Like, I'm going.
That's crazy.
Like, I'm going.
1,000?
Yeah,
That's
10,
so
1040. It says it on. I think there's a bottle right behind you.
Behind me? Yeah. No, there's nothing behind me. Yes, there is. Oh, there's a...
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah, great. Look at the can.
1040. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah, since 1040. They're making that up, though, but I'm here for it.
Fine. I mean, who cares? It's probably pretty damn close. They probably have some sort of something going back to something. So, like, in 18 years, like, that's something I will fly to Germany for.
That's pretty cool.
If they do a celebration for their
1,000th
1,000th year, I'll go. I'll stand in line for that.
I'll go with you.
Right.
I
Now, I
promise.
wouldn't go to get one bottle of their beer.
Right.
But I would go to be there and
Yeah.
be like, this is what we're celebrating it on this day.
Right.
Like, I'm there.
Yeah.
Like, that's something I would definitely do.
We've just become people who value experience and time over goods.
Right.
We're the most beautiful cliches.
Exactly. We're the, isn't that what the kids these days, they only care about experiences. Although I think
Sure.
that's also changing, because I think the truth is they only care about experiences that they can show the internet that they've experienced.
NFTs. That's why Doug's really into it.
Exactly.
Right.
Or those like moving, like the Van Gogh experience, or like all those. I think in LA it's really big, like these like BS
Grandma
quote unquote
moments.
museums that are just really like it for Instagram.
Yeah.
So you can like have like cool Instagram pics.
Grandma moments.
Like that makes me just want to barf.
When we did those pop-ups, that was something we would half joke, half be serious about. Like there have to be Instagrammable moments in these pop-ups. Anyway, it's a good place to.
I think it's probably as good a place. We had a couple letters. We'll have to get to them next week. So yeah. So sorry to Omar and Steve. We'll get to you.
Sorry,
we'll get to
Steve.
you. But yeah, I think we solved the problems of the beer world.
Yeah. That was concise, and we solved all of them.
Rambling, but
Yeah.
oh well. We will see you guys next week. Got to figure out what we're gonna do. I was hoping to get down to Bridgeport. We'll see if that's possible or
Do it
not.
on Thursday, supposedly.
That's true. If we let somebody know that we're gonna be down there,
Right.
and have guests also down there.
Right.
So we'll see.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah,
Always
but
do.
but thank you
most of them
guys.
do.
Feel free to leave us, send us a letter or an e-letter. We have the information in the show notes, and drop us a line. And I don't know. Was there anything we can ask them? No.
I don't think so.
I think we're ready to get out of here. All right, guys. So long. See you next week.
Bye. No.
Oh, nice. That's what you call a fade.